Welcome to One Brothas Mind, and I am KD Smooth. Today we will question and challenge popular information and views from a B1 perspective, while we expose the real facts you need. We do this to strengthen your logical, critical, and discerning thinking skills. Because in today's world, hard choices are mandatory and they come with consequences. So you need all the information. And at One Brothas Mind, we do this from a B1 Yeshua the Christ followers perspective. Now, if you're not ready, you better get ready with KD Smooth at One Brothas Mind. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's KD Smooth coming back at you. I pray you all are well. Family, got a quick video for you. This is actually going to be a reaction video from One Brothas Mind. There's a channel that has done a video in regards to a legal case or a case or a report of an employment issue. I'm not going to go into full detail about it because I don't want to spoil it. I got a video from this other YouTube channel. The name of the channel is Lehto's Law. Okay? Lehto's Lehto''S Law. This guy is an attorney. And he's got a YouTube channel where he kind of looks into and analyzes various different news stories that have legal ramifications, and he uses his many years of legal expertise to provide some clarity and information on those stories, and he offers his opinion or view as well. Okay. Full disclosure, I am a subscriber to Lehto's Law because normally, most of the time, he actually does a pretty good job. Most of the time, I do not agree with all of his perspectives and views and his opinions, but in general, he does a pretty good job, and it's an informative, and I would call it, he does somewhat of a service here on YouTube. So if you got a chance, check him out. If you appreciate his contract, throw him a subscribe or whatever. But he got one wrong. He got one way wrong. And I'm not saying that he has this one wrong in regards to the legal aspect. Okay? I'm saying he has this one wrong in regards to the right and wrong aspect. Okay? Righteous versus satanic aspect. Okay, so I'm gonna share this video with you, and then I'm gonna I hope he doesn't mind. Well, he probably will, but I'm gonna share this video of his with you, and I'm gonna get as much of it, let you see as much of it as needed, and so you can get a clear picture and understanding of what he's saying. Okay, so he can't say that I'm misrepresenting him in any way. I'm not gonna say nothing while it's playing. We're gonna review it together. Okay, and then when it's done, when I'm done, got to the part that I want to finish on, then we're gonna chop it up, and y'all, I'm gonna show y'all in this specific video. I'm not saying in all of his videos or on all his channels, no, but in this video, on this report that he's done on this issue, I'm going to show you guys the mind of Satan. Okay? I'm got to expose Satan, y'all. Okay? Yeah. So we're going to jump into this video right quick. Check it out. Again, I'm not saying all his content or that he's Satan himself, but he woke up this morning or whatever before he did this video, and the demons got a hold of him on this one. But I'm gonna let y'all be the judge. You be the judge, and then when it's over, when we're finished with the video, we're gonna chop it up, and I'm gonna give my reaction to this. Okay? All right. So here we go. Let's get this going here. All right. Let's see here. Here we go, family. This is from Lehto's, like you see on your screen. Lehto's Law. You saw the title. This is in regards to a report, a news report. It's popping around on the internet right now. There was a report of some employees at a company. They did some kind of specialized work that was pretty, it could be dangerous to a certain degree, but they did this work, and the report came out that the company that they worked for required, listen to me now, required overtime of their employees, and for the employees that refused, they faced jail time if they refuse to work overtime. Okay. Now this is Steve's, his first name is Steve, Lehto's. This is his update, because to his credit, the original report left out some information, but I'll give you my response to his update with the more of the corrected information and what information he shares about this when this video's over. I don't want to spoil it for you. All right, here we go, y'all.
Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
This is an update to the story I did recently about the people who were threatened with jail if they turned down voluntary overtime at an oil mine in Canada. And he has a whole lot going on in that sentence, but the story, as it was reported in the news originally, left out some key facts. So I want to go through this, and several people sent me notes, including a couple who sent me copies of the ruling that I mentioned yesterday in the video I did. So I have in my hands the ruling. It's only 3 pages long, but it is very clear, and it contains some factoids that were left out of the news articles most recently. So this is the full story. This is a findings and directives order from the Alberta Labor Relations Board, and it's called Application Brought Pursuant to Section 71 and 88, Sub 2, of the Labor Relations Code by Aluma Safeway, affecting certain employees of theirs, and the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America, local union number 1325. So the workers who are the scaffolders we talked about were members of a union, and there's a contract in place between these two entities. That is extremely important. The preamble to the findings and directives says, whereas on August 24th, 2022, Aluma Safeway, the employer, filed an application with us alleging a violation of the Labor Relations Code by certain employees who are scaffolders employed by the employer and represented by the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners. And whereas the application is in respect of alleged threats of cessation of work, refusal to continue to work, and alleged actual cessation of work, refusal to work, or refusal to continue to work by employees in respect of overtime. So the question then becomes, if they refused or threatened to refuse to work overtime, is that wrong? This matter was scheduled for a hearing before a panel on the board of August 25 at 10 a.m. The board afforded the parties, including the union as well as an affected employee, an opportunity to be heard on the matter set out in the application. So I had said in the video yesterday that chances are this is what the order says, and it says, we had a hearing, here is who was there, here's what they said, and here is our conclusion. So the board makes the following findings, and this explains everything. The employer and the unions are parties to a collective agreement, the General President's Maintenance Agreement, which is in force and applies to employees of the employer working at Suncor sites, Syncrude Mildred Lake, and CNOCC Long Lake site. So there is a collective agreement that they have reached previously. An anonymous letter was circulated to the employees suggesting that employees collectively refused to work overtime shifts for the purpose of compelling incentives from the employer, including improvements in compensation or working conditions, starting on Monday, August 22nd, 2022. Now, here's the interesting thing. It says they're asking, in theory, for better compensation and better working conditions. And interestingly enough, the compensation is probably very clearly laid out in that agreement. But the working conditions actually raise an interesting point, because if the conditions are unsafe, chances are the agreement says that the conditions probably have to be safe. So there might actually be a legitimate gripe there. But we'll move on. Starting on August 22nd, the employees have refused to work overtime, such that no employees agreed to work overtime, including for upcoming overtime shifts, which the evidence establishes is a significant decline from normal circumstances. The evidence before the board leads the board to the inference that such refusal is a concerted act by the employees acting in concert for the purpose of compelling the employer to agree to terms and conditions of employment. And they're saying they're not asking for them to agree to the terms of the employment in the contract. They're asking for something beyond the contract. The board finds the anonymous letter and the employee's concerted refusal to accept overtime shifts for the purpose of compelling the employer to agree to terms and conditions of employment constitutes an illegal threat of an illegal strike pursuant to Section 71, and the board declares these employees have threatened an illegal strike contrary to that provision. So their contract specifically says what they can and cannot do. And what they're doing here, according to this panel, is something they can't do. The board finds the employee's concerted refusal to accept overtime shifts for the purposes of compelling the employer to agree to terms and conditions of employment, which constitutes a refusal to work, to be an illegal strike under Section 71 of the Code, and the board declares these employees are engaged in an illegal strike contrary to that provision. So there is a contract in place that says here's what you can do, here's what you can't do. Therefore, the board makes the following directives under Section 86 of the Code. Employees have threatened an illegal strike or committed acts, the unreasonable and probable consequence of which is others will engage in an illegal strike, contrary to the Code. Employees shall cease and desist from threatening or committing acts, the reasonable and probable consequence of which are that others, in particular other employees, will engage in an illegal strike. Employees must not engage in any future collective effort to withdraw services from the employer as a means of applying pressure to effect changes to terms and conditions of employment, except where a strike is permitted under the code. The law specifically says strikes can be conducted in certain manners. And the panel here is saying this is not one of those manners. And by the way, you should remember that they're talking about collective efforts. And in the previous video, I pointed out that we've often heard of sick outs, where there's a group of people working someplace, whether they have a contract or not, and they're unhappy, and they say, hey, let's all call in sick on Wednesday. If everyone calls in sick on Wednesday, it'll get their attention. That is a collective action if everyone calls in sick on Wednesday when they're not really sick. And I know some of you are going to say, but Steve, if I've got the right to call in sick, who's to say if we all called in sick on the same day that we just didn't all do that, coincidentally? Yeah, hypothetically, but let's just be reasonable here. So certain employees who were at work at the Suncor site project in August 22, 23, and 24 did engage in an illegal strike contrary to Section 71. All employees must refrain from further breaching the requirement not to strike during the currency of the collective agreement. The union is directed to post a copy of these findings and directives on all relevant notice boards or equivalent locations at its offices where this might come to the attention of its members who are employees and on its website. The employer is directed to post copies of these findings and directives in a location or locations at or near the workplace where they're most likely to come to the attention of affected individuals. They must remain posted for 90 days. The board shall email a copy of these findings and directives to the Gmail address of the scaffolders union. Service of these findings and directives as set out above shall be good and sufficient service of these findings and directives pursuant to the code and the board's rules of procedure. Further, to the employer's request under section 88.2 of the code, the board shall forthwith file these directives with the Alberta Court of Queen's Bench. Once filed, the directives will be enforceable as an order of the court. Violation of a court order can result in civil or criminal penalties, including contempt of court, and that's where you'd get the potential for jail time. Issued and dated at the city of Edmonton in the province of Alberta, this 25th day of August, by the Alberta Labor Relations Board, and signed by Vice Chair Jeremy Schick. So the story as originally presented on Reddit, by the way, I'm always hesitant to do a story which appears to come almost entirely from Reddit. And I've seen major news organizations jump on stuff that they saw on Reddit because it became popular. They thought, well, people are interested in this, let's do a story about it. But the story as presented on Reddit said there are workers in Canada doing very, very dangerous work. They're building scaffolds. They're working on scaffolds. Scaffolds can be dangerous, and people get hurt. People get killed working on scaffolds. These people are working 10-hour shifts in extreme heat, and they've been told if you turn down voluntary overtime, you can go to jail. Now, that thumbnail sketch is technically true in the sense that all of the portions of it are correct. But it leaves out a bunch of other stuff. And it leaves out that, oh, by the way, these workers and their employer have a contract between them that the union for the workers negotiated and got accepted by the employer. And so there's a contract in place. And the contract in place says that there's a manner in which we offer overtime and so on. And they left out of the Reddit story, as far as I know, the idea that the workers all said, we don't want to do overtime, and we're unhappy with the fact that we didn't get a bonus that somebody else got. And there's a bunch of different reasons why it may have happened. But the workers appear to have gotten together and said, let's all collectively turn down the overtime. And if we all turn it down, we can force them to give us more than is in our contract. That's the allegation that was heard by the Labor Relations Board. And the Labor Relations Board found, as a matter of law, that is what happened. So I'm not saying that is what happened. I wasn't there, okay? But that's the allegation. But the board had witnesses come in and explain what happened, and they apparently came to the conclusion there's enough evidence here for us to see this was a collective or concerted action where everybody got together and decided to do something that was, in essence, a work stoppage. And the work stoppage may have been overtime. Overtime might be considered voluntary in the sense that they offer it to you. And if you take it, great. If you don't take it, well, that's okay. But apparently in the past, they've always had people take the overtime, so it's never a problem. Until they all got together collectively and said, none of us take the overtime, that'll get their attention. And so what spurred that, I don't care, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Now, getting back to the safety issue, because they said there was an allegation of safety issues or something about the workplace. Now, the board didn't rule on that, which indicates either they forgot to rule on it or that there was not enough evidence to prove out that point. I suspect that's the case because they say that both sides were represented here. And I have heard of situations before where people have been in a working environment with a contract and they've said, we're going to walk off the job because that's unsafe. And more people are sympathetic to that because if you give me a choice of working in an environment where I could lose an arm or going to jail, I'll go to jail. I'd rather both my arms in jail than only have one arm on the outside working as best I can with one arm. So that wasn't addressed here, and that allegation was made, but it looks like there was not a lot to that allegation other than they're doing scaffolding work, which they knew because that's what they're doing all along, and they're doing that in the summer in Canada, which, of course, it does get warm up there in the summertime. So that's the story. And like I said, it appears that some items of that story didn't make it out into the mainstream news. And so a lot of people just said, well, how can I go to jail if I turn down voluntary overtime? And that's not really the full picture. It was an entire workforce that appears to have agreed to let's all do this one thing that's going to mess with the employer and force them to give us more than what's in our contract. Because remember, there's no allegation here that the employer wasn't honoring the contract. And if that was the situation, well, then people might go, well, gee, that strike seems appropriate, if in fact that's what you want to call it. But it appears to have been a concerted work stoppage. And the work stoppage, according to the Alberta Labor Relations Board, was inappropriate because they were seeking more than was in their contract. So that's the ruling from the Alberta Labor Relations Board. You can argue with what the board did, but I'm letting you know that's what they said because that's literally, I just read to you all 3 pages of the ruling, and it ends on paragraph 15, which is the last thing I read to you. So there you go. So I got to thank Evo.
Okay, family. Y'all heard it. Again, I did not interrupt or cut it in any way because I didn't want Mr. Lehto to say I misrepresented, his report and information in any way. And again, in regards to full disclosure, Katie Smooth is a subscriber to Steve Lehto's Law YouTube channel. I appreciate his content. I don't agree with everything, and I feel that he does some little trickerations, and I'm going to talk about those in this report. Sometimes he does some trickerations that are jacked up, but there you have it. Now, Steve, you about to catch all of this One Brothas Mind work today. You about to catch all this work today. Okay? So buckle up. Buckle up. All right? Okay. Y'all heard the report. You get the gist of what it's about. And the thing that I want you to keep, or that you have to keep in mind and focused on, is this is about overtime, not regular work hours. Okay? And as he reported, this is a story out of Canada. Okay? This is about overtime. I'm in the US. I'm not a Canadian citizen and never been there. I don't know what their employment laws are, but if their employment laws allow this, this is another example of why, or would be, why Canada is satanic. I got some other reasons for that, but this would be an additional one. Okay? Again, focus. This is on overtime. Okay? So I'm now about to show you the mind or mentality of Satan. Okay? Buckle up. First off, one of the comments that he made, he slipped in there, and they do that sometimes. It's not just him. Don't get it twisted. But it's him today. Okay? He slipped in the comment that these employees, their union, negotiated this rule, this overtime rule, or face jail ultimately. They negotiated for that to be in their union contract. Fam, 99.9999999%, that's a lie. No union for employees are going to negotiate or look to add an overtime rule such as this, because that does not benefit in any way their clientele that they are representing. So keep that in mind. So what you have to understand, family, and this is also as well impactful for the United States. Many employers, many jobs have what I call here One Brothas Mind satanic overtime rules, so-called required overtime rules, where they got this little satanic policy written where overtime is voluntary, but if nobody volunteers for the overtime, then the company can just start delegating out. You have to stay, you have to stay, you have to stay at their leisure. They can assign overtime. Again, this is overtime, family, not your regular hours that you agreed to. This is overtime. Okay? So many jobs. So for my young listeners, if you didn't know this, when you go to apply for jobs or accept jobs, you need to request their like employee handbook or what are they in this case? What are their overtime rules? Request that so you can read them and understand what they say and how they work, and ensure that you agree with it. Most employers, they have these crazy satanic overtime rules, or I say a lot of them, not most. They have them on their books. But when you, as a new employee, a new hire, when you accept that job, they don't show you that information. They don't provide you with that information until after you have agreed to work for them. You've went into a contractual employment agreement with them. And then most employers don't even show you this information during your orientation. There's information that they do show you and present to you, and then there's a lot they don't. Okay? And it's up to you, the new hire, to go through the entire employee handbook and information in regards to the company to confirm what their rules are. Okay? But most people don't do that. Most people are just content. They got the job. They understand how basic employment works. Okay, we cool. But y'all better start reading these jobs information. Okay. Again, like I said, most or a lot of employers, and it doesn't matter whether it's Canada, obviously, or the US and probably some other places, they have so-called required overtime rules. I remember I had a job that tried to pull this out of the crack of they, yeah, and they brought it up. They used it as a billy club or a threatening aspect, because when they first announced, hey, they announced we need some people to work some overtime. None of the employees volunteered. So then they pulled this BS out and said, well, y'all know, if nobody volunteers, then we'll be forced to start assigning and requiring overtime from who we select or who we pick. And yeah, Katie Smooth, I came out my seat on that one. Like, I wish the hell y'all would try that. I dare you. I double dog dare you. Okay? So now that threat actually scared some younger employees in my situation to go ahead and volunteer. But that's the whole purpose of it. That's in Katie Smooth's opinion, the illegality of it. Okay? So the other concept that I need y'all to understand, and I've been telling people this for decades, slavery in the United States, and in this case, clearly in Canada, never ended. It's never ended. And I'm going to speak on this somewhat from the perspective of the United States, okay, in this regard. It never ended, y'all. All they did, they lied and said, called it whatever they want to call it, and said, this must end now. Lincoln and all them and all the little governmental writings, they lied. They said, these things have got to end, whatever they called them. But then they continued and reestablished it and expanded actual slavery by calling it new names. They gave slavery new names. Two of the new names that they gave it was employers and landlords. Those are slave masters, y'all. Okay? Those are slave masters. All right? For those that are aware or sometimes cross the paths with another YouTube channel, his name is Dane Calloway. He exposes that particular fact, and he ain't never lied about that. He's spot on. I don't agree with him on everything, but he's spot on with that. Slavery never ended. They just gave it new names. Employers and landlords. That's what they did. Okay, and they actually expanded slavery. They didn't end it. Okay. So, with that being said, the basic principle that Steve Lehto here is explaining, and from the sounds of it to me, and Steve, if this is not what you are saying or inferring by your video, number one, you need to do a second update and clarify. Two, if that's the case, I will take and remove my reaction video. But until then, it's my understanding here at One Brothas Mind that he is saying and suggesting and inferring that because this clause is in the union contract, it's not only legal, but he doesn't speak to it, or by not speaking to it, he's inferring that it's also righteous or right instead of wrong. Okay? And there's a lot of people out there that have the mindset, especially a lot of attorneys, because they've been brainwashed. I'll get to that in a minute. But they have the mindset that if whatever it is that you put in a contract, if the other party agrees to it, hey, that's a done deal. It's a contract. We have a binding contract. It's legal. And that is not true, especially here in the U.S. I can't fully speak for the contract system in Canada. It may be true, but that's, again, if it is, that is just another or an additional reason why Canada is satanic. Okay? And for my Canadian listeners, I'm not jumping on y'all because the USA is the biggest Satan in my opinion. One Brothas Mind. Y'all just catching up if that's the case. But they're both of them Satan, so don't be tripping. I ain't picking on Canada. All right, but the whole mindset of if it's in an agreed contract, that makes it legal and okay. That's satanic, y'all. Because in most contracts, and that's what they are, a con, and they're a tract. Some of y'all, my younger listeners, are new to that saying. The rest of y'all know what I'm saying, that we've been hearing that and knowing that for a long time. They are a con. They are a tract. They are a tract that trap you. It's not really for your protection unless you do above and beyond your due diligence to ensure that the terms of the contract benefit you just as much as they benefit the other entity. Okay? But most people are not attorneys and lawyers, So they don't fully understand all of the various terms that lawyers and attorneys have put in to contracts. And that's a big part of the con there. They're written to con you, okay? So again, just because a clause is in a contract does not make it legal or righteous, okay? So based on the information he provided, he's suggesting that this is another little trickeration he dropped in there. If you listen carefully, if not, rewind and listen to him again. He dropped in there that what if they have this contractual agreement by their union? That was the first trickeration. The second trickeration he dropped in was, okay, in his example, he said, what if all the employees, because they want something from their employer that they're not getting, all the employees decide to do a sick out or a call off or whatever, or in this case, refuse to work overtime. Okay, first off, there's a lot of trickeration he threw in there. One, this is not, again, in regards to your regular so-called 40-hour work week, your regular hours that you agreed to when you accepted the employment. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about overtime. Okay? Number two, the other trickeration he put in, he said all the employees decided they were not going to work overtime. I guarantee you, if there are employees that come out with this, with more detailed information about this story from Canada, I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, those employees are going to say, no, all the employees did not refuse to work overtime. It may have been most, it may have been half or somewhere thereabout, but the only fair thing you can say without hearing from those employees is a significant amount of them, not all. Because when you say all, you're making, or Steve is making it seem like all the employees were purposely doing something that was against their contract, therefore they're wrong. No. 9 times 10, that's not what happened. Okay? The fairest thing you can say is a significant amount of employees, because he has no information, none, at least none that he shared, that says all the employees refuse to work overtime. Okay, so in a more fair example, since we don't have that information, the best you could say is 51% of the employees, cancel that. I actually want to go somewhere else with that. Just a significant portion of them, a significant enough number of employees refuse to work overtime, where it actually caused a hardship for that employer to get its, whatever it's producing, whatever services that employer is providing, for them to produce or provide those services or products. Okay? That's the best you can say with that. Now, in regards to this union agreement, this clause that requires employees to work overtime and restricts them from doing a significant refusal, a significant amount of employees from refusing to work overtime. That's basically the clause that Steve explained, and it prevents that and provides the employer, so-called employer, Satan, to have some means to be able to punish and go after the employees that refuse to work overtime. Okay, most of y'all already got this when you heard this, but I'm doing this for the people that it wasn't automatic for them. Okay, So let's say when you got a union representing the employees, union contracts only in most cases require 51% of the employees to vote yes for the agreement, and then that contract is agreed to. With y'all knowing that, y'all also understand if that happened, that still means that 49% of those employees was like, hell to the no. Don't put that in. Don't put that in the contract. We don't want that. But let's just say in that example, 51% of the employees said, okay, whether they read all the clauses or not, they said yes. Right? So now, as an employee of that company that's represented by a union, okay, that allowed this clause to stay in there for required overtime, now the other 49% of the employees are subject to this satanic clause. Did you catch that? This is not an all or 100% or zero situation. Union contracts never are. There's always a significant percent that has to vote yes for it and agree to it, whether they fully understand what they're agreeing to or not, or the opposite, to vote it down. Okay? So he threw in these two triggerations, in my opinion, that also were satanic and misleading. Satanically misleading. All right. And this was his update, his correction video. All right. So you can't say I used your old content, Steve. All right. Because I saw the first one and I waited because I felt that you had at least enough integrity to come back, and you clearly do, as usual, to come back and try to make corrections and updates when needed and necessary. So kudos to you for that attempt, but you still got it wrong. Anyway, but family, what you have to understand, and before I go into that, please, family, remember to smash the likes, share this video on all your social media, and subscribe if you appreciate this content from One Brothas Mind. We cover a wide variety of issues here on One Brothas Mind, and sometimes I have to go in on some of these, y'all fill in the blank, on YouTube and other social media platforms. It's just so bad. It's so obvious. The Satanism it's crazy, and this is one. All right. What y'all understand is that in most, as I said previously, in most contract situations, they're contracts. They're designed to con you. If you sign a contract, 9 times out of 10, you're signing a contract with an entity that has more power than you. They also have more control over that contract than you, by way of you being the entity that wants whatever that, in this case, employer is offering, which is a job, or you're an entity, say, like with a landlord, the other slave masters, with the landlord, because you want the apartment. So contracts, being a con, they are unbalanced, unequal, 9 times out of 10. Okay, it don't matter where you getting a contract from. They hand you a piece of paper with a bunch of writing on it, you getting screwed in general. Okay, but because of your level of need, most people, including people in Canada, they sign them and just try to move on and try to make it work, so they can get out of the contract what they need and move on, right? So, for example of what I'm describing here, there's a recent news story and report, I think it's out of New York, where a landlord, like I said, the other slave masters, and there's others out there, but right now I'm focusing on employers, and in this example, landlords. There's a landlord, I think it was in New York, that have been putting a clause in their lease agreement for female renters that required sex from their female renters, required the female renters to have sex with the landlord for them to get approved, for that landlord to approve them to have the lease and therefore get the apartment. Now, automatically all y'all's like, oh, hell no, that's crazy. That's crazy. You can't do that. That's trying to take advantage of people, and that's just illegal, right? But for those of y'all that are sitting back going, not seeing the problem with this overtime issue, again, this is overtime. This is not regular hours in the work week. This is overtime that is supposed to always be voluntary if it's righteous, and no other clauses or additions to it. Voluntary, that's it. And if you're an employer, small or large, if you find yourself in a position where you need staff, and to get the staff you have has to work overtime, and they don't want to do it, then it's your responsibility as an employer to go out and hire new staff or additional staff to cover the staffing that you need to cover the work hours that you need covered. It's not your current employees' responsibility. They didn't agree to required overtime. And even in this case, that according to Steve Lehto's report, the union actually agreed to that clause being in this union contract. The fact that it's in there, just like with the landlord required sex clause in that lease contract, the fact that it's in there is or should be illegal, because that's satanic. You can't have an employee work their regular shift for you in a day and then come out and require that they stay and continue working for you because you need them to continue to make you money as an employer, while they neglect their lives, their health, their family. You can't do that. That's satanic and illegal. But that's what this company is doing. Even if the union agreed to this satanic clause, and of course for the employees of this company in Canada, y'all need to sue the union and get rid of them, and get y'all, if y'all need to have union representation, establish y'all own. Get rid of these other fools. That's number one. Okay? As well as, I don't know in Canada if they have something similar like the EEOC that we have in the US, the Equal Opportunity Employment Agency, federal agency. But if they have something similar to that in Canada, y'all need to contact them and some attorneys. Y'all need to go after this company legally. You know, even if y'all got to put a money pool together to pay for an attorney collectively. I mean, if y'all collectively refuse to work overtime, there should be enough of y'all to try to put some money together and collectively pay for an attorney that will sue the pants off of this union and the employer, and expose them. They need to go to jail for this, just like the landlord or landlords in New York that was requiring and putting a required sex clause in the leasing contracts. Okay? The next thing I need you to understand, family, is by now you should see how satanic this is. How employers became the renamed slave masters, because it's all employers' perspective that it's their perspective to get their employees to work for them for as cheapest labor as they possibly can, pay them as less as they can get away with, work them as hard as they can make them work, okay? And I mean, have no concern for their employees' well-being. The sole focus of an employer is about the company or employer's needs, wants, and well-being. Okay? Those things in regards to the employees mean nothing, which is why we always, even in the U.S., we got this employer battle, tug of war going on, which the employers have always been winning in most cases. The very rare cases that employees actually win and defeat a slave master employer. Okay? So I need y'all to really lock that in. The other thing is just overall, this is a great example of how I've told people this for years, but how the legal system, the Western legal system, the Eurocentric legal system that's in the US, Canada, and Europe, and many other places like that, this legal system, one, is absolutely 100% satanic. That's number one. Number two, it actually it originated, the legal system that we all are still operating and living under today. It originated from a man, a Roman man back during the Roman Empire named Justine. 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 Okay? He used a lot of Babylonian previous legal systems, setups, and added to those, modified, adjusted them, and basically enhanced them to make them even worse. But they're all satanic. The end result, the Babylonian legal system was satanic, and the end result of the Roman Justine's legal system that we all are still subject to and under this day. They try to hide it, but the reality is, and I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole because I surely can, we all, even in America, we all in this European Western legal system, that's its origins from Rome. And every attorney in America and that participates in this Western European legal system ultimately are officers, as y'all know, they're officers of the court. They don't work for you. They don't represent you. They are officers of the court, just like police officers are officers of the police department. They don't work for you. They're not responsible to you. They work for their department. So they could give a damn about you. Just like attorneys could really, any attorney, they could give a damn about you. They don't work for you. Even though you're paying them, they don't work for you. They're officers of the court. The question is, you got to research. Officers of what court? And it's the Roman court system and legal system of the Justine legal system from Rome. That's the court that they are officers of, which is why they have to pass the what? The bar. That is their requirement, their Roman legal Justinian legal system requirement. Do your history and your research on the bar that they have to take to become so-called licensed attorneys or officers of the court. Okay? Do your research. I can go into something, but I'm trying to make this video as short as I can. So, what you have to understand with all attorneys is when they go to law school, and that's why they got a special school for it, all this stuff, they are literally indoctrinated with this satanic Justinian legal system. They are taught it. And obviously they have to pass the bar to ensure that they've been indoctrinated enough into this satanic legal system to operate within its requirements for them as officers of the court. And that's what you have here. That's why, at least in this video, Steve did not express the issue of whether this is righteous or satanic. He just stayed focused on what he feels is the legality. He's basically saying, well, the union agreed to it. The employees that voted for the union agreed to it, so it's legal. You can do it. No, it's satanic, and should be, if it's not, illegal in Canada. Okay? Just like the clause in the leasing agreement that the landlord put in for female tenants of required sex. It's no different. It's no different. I don't care. It doesn't matter if the union agreed with it. Like I said, there's a good chance that 51% of the employees voted yes for this agreement and 49% voted no. So that passed, unless the union has other ratios that are required, and that passed, and the 49% of the employees there, according to Steve and according to this company and according to this court, they can throw them in jail for refusing to work overtime. Let that sink in. Let it marinate. Overtime that's supposed to be voluntary. This is Slave Master 101. They just use some satanic attorneys to draw this clause up and put in some trickeration in the wording so that they could actually put it on paper on the union agreement, and whatever idiots or sellouts or bribe union representatives that went back to employees and most likely didn't fully explain this aspect or this clause to the employees to get them to agree to it, they agreed to it. And then once it's set, let's agree so we can do it. No. Hell no. Ain't no overtime nowhere. If you work for an employer that tries to pull or comes at you in any kind of way, I don't care if you're in the US, Canada, or where you are in the world, if they come at you in any kind of way talking about overtime is required or you're going to be terminated if you leave, even though you just worked your assigned shift that you agreed to, and now it's time for your shift to end, and all of a sudden they done got busy. Now they're saying you can't leave. No. It don't work like that. It don't work like that, Satan. I'm out. And if they threaten to fire you or they do, sue their ass. Contact in the U.S. the EEOC, the federal agency, and file a report and a lawsuit against them. They can't do that. That's illegal. That's literally Slave Master 101. Once your scheduled time has ended, your agreement has ended for that day. There's nothing else to be said. Now, if you choose to volunteer, if you agree to it, all right, I want to stay, you want the extra money, whatever, fine. But that's your choice. That's not something that an employer can legally or righteously require. Okay? Especially young people, because they doing a lot of stuff and a lot of y'all don't know. For whatever reason, y'all don't know. Ain't nobody ever told y'all, but Katie Smooth letting y'all know today. Don't agree to no overtime, volunteer for no overtime under any duress or pressure. If you do it, you want to do it. You want the extra money. Other than that, tell them to kick rocks. And if they fire you or talk crazy to you, call and file a report with the EEOC, sue their ass. Okay? I'm sorry, I had to, y'all, I've been wanting to do this report. I reviewed this hours ago, and it set me on fire so bad, I had to wait hours just so I could calm down some, so I wouldn't be bumbling and stumbling through this, because I've work for employers that have attempted to do this in little piece of trash fast food jobs, as well as full large employers that have multiple thousands of employees. And they've in various ways tried to pull this crap, and in front of me, I let them have it. They didn't, one employer, it wasn't the largest one that they tried to pull it. It wasn't directed directly at me. They were talking to the employee group. I just happened to be sitting there listening, and that was enough. I'm like, what the hell? Y'all can't do that. I literally said it out loud. Make sure all the other employees, especially the young ones, heard me and hopefully understood. That's illegal. You can't do that. And then the manager responded back, well, it's in your employment agreement and all that. But the same satanic, legal, babbling that you're hearing or heard from Steve Lehto. Good luck with that. Y'all can't do that. That's illegal. Y'all can get sued for that. Now, the other employers prior to that tried in various different ways. The one, no employer other than that one ever directly tried to come at me about that. Because like I said, y'all, Katie Smooth 66. I dare a Waka Flocka come at me talking about I bet not leave or I'm fired. I'm fired? If I leave? Are you sure? You sure you want to rethink that? Take a moment, rethink that. Next thing is gonna happen. I'm gonna do something to be fired. Then I'm gonna sue you also. Okay? Or it's better yet, young people, do this. Go get something to record, to turn your phone on, put it on record, and make that employer, that manager, or whoever it is, repeat what they just told you. Make it full clear you got it recorded. Then turn the recorder off and respond how you see fit. I wish so. Because they're literally treating you as a slave. That is one of the highest forms of disrespect. They're treating you as if you're not human. You're a piece of property. And that's how you gonna come at Katie? Yeah, okay, right. That's why most of them, my employers never did come at me like that. They came at, I saw them come at other employees, my coworkers like that. That was smaller dudes or smaller ladies, and most of them only come at employees as the supervisors or managers. They come at employees they feel that they can intimidate and dominate. That's what I'm saying. They never came at Katie Smooth like that. Some furniture would have been moving. Okay? So, it is what it is, y'all. Like I said, Steve, you had to get this work today. I hope that you got enough righteousness in your elbow to come back after you hear this, if you hear this reaction video, and explain yourself further. And in the best case scenario, provide the information for the employees in Canada. If it's really against the law, providing legal information for them to be able to take legal action against their union and against this employer, if it's illegal officially in Canada. Okay? Again, family, there you have it. Y'all let me know what you think on this. Let me know your opinion. I mean, there's literally some people that have gotten to this point in this reaction video, and they still sitting around talking about, nah, Katie Smooth, you wrong. It's in contract, it's legal, and woo woo woo. Look, go get you a mirror or go stand in the mirror. You've always wanted to see the devil. Go look in the mirror. It's you. It literally is you. Go look in the mirror. There he is. or there she is. Okay? So, again, smash the like, share, and subscribe to One Brothas Mind if you appreciate the content. Every now and then, some little stuff get put out here in these internet streets, and I like everybody else, I got to do a rant. I got to do a reaction. This was one of them. My last reaction, you can find it. Actually, I'll post it at the end of this video, but you can find it also if you go to the One Brothas Mind YouTube channel and scroll down. I did a reaction. His name is Kevin, guy out of California that he's an actual real estate millionaire that actually ran for governor. He didn't win, but he gives or provides stock trading advice and information. And when he was running for governor, it had nothing to do with him running for governor. It was about Home Depot. Something happened at Home Depot and he got mad about it. He went off about it. He did a rant about it, and he caught all this work from One Brothas Mind. So check that one out when you get a chance as well. Y'all let me know what you think in the comments. And if you think Katie Smooth's wrong, you just you rocking with Team Satan, drop it in the comments, man. Drop it in the comments, okay? Let a brother know, because I already know that this is out there, family. What's on your screen right now? Katie Smooth already know, and I keep telling people. This is from the book of Ephesians in the Bible, chapter 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This sentiment, this legal issue is an example of this scripture. Verbatim. That's why I keep telling y'all it's satanic. Because as employees, as citizens, for the most part, especially without the legal knowledge, many people don't know, are not aware that, at least in the US, they don't have to put up with this crap. And hopefully it's the same way in Canada, but I don't know. I hope it is. But either way, even though, say, in the example of the US, that employees don't have to put up with no required mandatory overtime BS, that doesn't stop satanic employers from putting it in their employment clauses and contracts. They most all of them got it in there. If you go to your job, ask for the handbook, pull it out, blow the dust off of it, go to overtime and read that segment slowly. 9 times out of 10, you're going to find it there. Where they done trickerated, twisted, word gamed it up to say that overtime is voluntary and it's mandatory in some kind of way. Go do it. And it's because what you see on your screen. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. They are satanic. This is the spirit of Satan showing its face in the legal system. In this case, it's in Canada, but we have these same similar problems in the US as well. I gave you the example of the landlord or landlords. They just ain't caught them all. There's a lot of them that been doing this. Okay, been doing it over the years. It's just like cops that pull over ladies, mothers with their young kids in the back. And they say, well, I will write you a ticket unless we work something out. You do something, you do something for me. And they end up raping the mothers under threat that if those mothers don't have sex with them, they're going to call CPS and get those mothers' kids taken away from it. There's a lot of examples of this kind of crap, satanic crap, even all the way up into the office of the so-called president of the United States, or Trudeau over there in Canada, whatever his official title is. It's satanic, y'all. Spiritual wickedness in high places. Okay? So y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment, and we'll chop it up there. And this concludes this broadcast from One Brothas Mind. We thank you for joining us. And as a part of the new Black media, B1 choices are mandatory and being on code is required. But never fear, Yeshua the Christ is with you always. Shalom.